Last time on Vortex Reviews.
What the fuck? Motherfucker!
Hello guys! Well, as we all know, we have a new Star Wars movie to deal with. Of course, this is all my opinion, based on my personal thoughts. In other words, deal with it. So without further ado, let's hop right in. Caution, spoilers ahead of course. So let's start with the elephant in the room. That Tarkin was in this movie blew me away completely, and the fact that they didn't spoil that in the trailers is amazing. Well, did I enjoy having him in the movie? Well, yes and no. Take a note of this, people. I will often come back to this as we go on. But Tarkin was simply Tarkin in this movie. He acted just as he should, so no problem there. They used CGI to make Tarkin, since the actor Peter Cushing passed away in 1994. God bless his soul. But this took me out of the movie completely, since I only focused on the fan service. His first scene starts with him having his back turned, and us mega fans immediately recognized him. As the cameras moved forward, we see a reflection of his face, and it blew me away. Here is where it gets a little wacky. As the scene moves on, we see Tarkin turn around completely, thus revealing that he is complete CGI. The reflection on the window earlier was fine, since they hadn't really broken the illusion yet, but when we saw him in full lighting, it took me out of the movie completely. Beyond that, Tarkin just steals the show from the main antagonist, director Orson Krennic, which leads me to my next point: the characters. Tarkin, as I said, was awesome, but they should have used him more sparingly. Plus, they shouldn't really have revealed him in full person. They should have sticked with the reflection, it would have been fine, but yeah. The main character, Jyn Erso, was kind of meh, in my opinion. She feels overall uninterested in what's going on, and she has a really emotional moment when she sees the hologram from Galen Erso. That was like her best scene. Otherwise, I didn't really care for her. She didn't stick with me really. Moving on to Cassian. He adds something to the movie, which I think is great, but he doesn't do much beyond that. In the scene where he explains to Jyn that he has to do things for the Alliance that he isn't always comfortable with. For example, the thing that he has to assassinate Galen Erso in the movie, and then he decides to not pull the trigger. That was a cool moment. He added something cool to the movie, which I really enjoyed. It shows that the rebels has to do some really horrific shit sometimes. That they aren't always heroes. They can be labeled as terrorists sometime as well. So it really shows the dark side of the Rebel Alliance, and he added that to the movie, which was awesome. But he didn't do much else. Okay, the friendship between Base and Chariot, I think his name was Chariot anyway, it's pretty funny at times, and Chariot brings more into the lore of the Force, plus bringing a new mantra to the table: I am one with the Force is with me, which has been appreciated by the fanbase. It was a cool mantra, I like it. Bodhi shows that not all pilots in the Empire agree with what they do. And I think we've seen this already. We saw that in Finn's character in Force Awakens, that not all Stormtroopers or Imperialists are evil. We've seen that already, so I don't think that Bodhi adds anything to the movie, really. Plus that, you know, hentai scene where the squid, like, sucks out his brain or whatever, that was very unnecessary and never spoken of again, so I have no idea why they included it in the movie. But this might have something to do with the reshoots they made, I'm just speculating. Saw Gerrera shows that any side has extremists, and my opinion on Saw is that he is at least better than he was in the Clone Wars show, which is acceptable. And he was just revealed to be in the Star Wars Rebels show in the latest trailer, so maybe his character will be a little more fleshed out there. Hopefully we'll get some more info on him. And I wish his death was made different as well. Him just standing there and dying felt really out of character for him. I felt that he was gonna fight to the last breath. So maybe him dying, the little cliche, like, yeah, go on, I'm just a burden, blah 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 blah, but he just stood there. He's like, nah, go on, but man, you're fine, you can just hop on the ship. He's like, nah, go. It was just very out of character for him, and I didn't enjoy that. K2SO was awesome, and his death was not super over the top as I expected it to be, but I felt his character has already been seen in other robot characters such as Tars from Interstellar. But yeah, he was enjoyable to watch. He had some fun lines. He was pretty good. And now moving on to our favorite big shot, Vader. Vader was and always will be awesome. The first scene he was in had a few corny lines like, don't choke on your aspirations. And here we come back to the yes and no zone I talked about earlier. And Vader has dry wit at times. For example, I find your lack of faith disturbing, as he chokes the guy. We would be honored if you would join us, as he rips the gun from Han Solo's hand. Perhaps you think you're being treated unfairly, as he threatens Lando Calrissian. Maybe it's just the way he said it, since it sounded more sassy than witty, more pun-like rather than sarcastic. And that's my main problem. His dialogue works. I think it's not me being used to seeing Vader on the big screen for such a long time. Other than that, the ending scene where he was massacring those rebel soldiers was fucking awesome. You could tell why he was so pissed in A New Hope, since he was so close to get them at the end, and then they just flew away. Okay, moving on. To be honest, I didn't like Director Krennic all that much. Now, don't get me wrong, he has a couple of good moments. For example, in the first scene, when he hears that Galen Erso's wife has died, he says, "My condolences. Search the house." That was really enjoyable, but as the movie dragged on, I felt he was being overshadowed by both Tarkin and Vader, and he's a very simplistic villain. Don't get me wrong, I prefer him being simplistic. It's just that his death, for example, I expected him to report to Tarkin that the rebels had succeeded in taking the Death Star plans, then all of a sudden he would start to gasp for air as Vader entered the room or some shit like that. But no, his death was just, he just got shot and just died. See, you wasted potential in fucking wasting him with Vader's awesome powers. I don't know. Could have been used, but And here we go, the Death Troopers, whose name sort of retcons the original Death Troopers novel by Joe Schreiber, which I enjoyed a lot. Although Death Troopers is no longer considered canon, it feels weird to use that name for this new type of stormtrooper. But I digress. They were very hyped up by the trailer, and all throughout the movie I was hoping for a badass scene where they go berserk. But boy was I disappointed. We only see them killing off a squad of rebels and then get taken down. They failed to hit a man who's walking slow as shit across a battlefield with no cover, a blind man at that. Throughout the movie we hear them sort of growl with a cyborg-esque sound. This was an immediate clue that the Death Troopers are the new canon version of the old Phase Zero Dark Troopers, which were old clone veterans with cybernetic enhancements. But here's some facts for y'all. The new Death Troopers are apparently selected out of the best of the Stormtrooper Corps, and they're taken to Scarif for Death Trooper training, and then be outfitted with cyborg enhancements. A cool thing to do here would have been to cast Temuera Morrison as one of the Death Troopers. He's the actor who played Jango Fett in the prequels, for those who don't know that. And have one of the rebels unmask a Death Trooper, and at one point we get to see that it is in fact a cyborg clone. Even though I hate the prequels, I think it would have been a cool little nod, you know. But they have also been revealed to be in the Star Wars Rebels show in the new trailer, so hopefully we'll get something similar like that in the Rebels show. But I'm still gonna make this point in the movie that they didn't really do much. They were hyped, but then pretty disappointing. Cause, I mean, come on, these guys are supposed to be the Navy SEALs of the Empire. Let me see some of that shit, instead of just making them as useless as regular Stormtroopers. I don't know. On that note, the Stormtroopers are fucking inept in this movie. Fine, in A New Hope one could argue that they were missing on purpose, but here it is very vital that the rebels do not escape. Remember, if they do that, they will possibly lose the Death Star, the one thing you've been building for 20 fucking years. Lastly, I would like to talk about the overall feel of the movie. It starts to get very disjointed and jumpy in the beginning, and it hops from place to place, from character to character, and it's very confusing. And this movie didn't feel like a Star Wars movie. It felt like an action-adventure movie who just happened to take place in the Star Wars universe. And this is what movie got right. Now, they didn't stay with this formulation all throughout the movie, which caused a slight incoherence, but beyond that, the tone felt right, okay? It is riddled with fan service. I cannot stress how much fan service there is in this movie. I can appreciate that from time to time, but when it's literally in almost every scene of the movie, you begin to lose yourself in the moment. I found myself looking for Easter eggs more than concentrating on the actual story, and this is something a movie should never do. It loses contact with the audience too often. This makes the movie feel disjointed when it really shouldn't. What this movie suffers from is its dependence on the context on the whole Star Wars universe, and what I mean by that is that without the whole Star Wars printed on it, this movie would not be able to stand on its own feet, thus making it a lesser film. But, yeah, what I'm saying is that without the Star Wars brand on it, the movie just wouldn't work. The whole Star Wars name wings home this movie, and that's what I'm saying. I can appreciate this movie, I can love this movie how much I ever fucking want, but I'd still have to state in an unbiased opinion that the movie couldn't work without the Star Wars brand on it. Okay, but as the third act started, that's when the movie really went in the right direction. It felt very well made at that point, and especially thought through. They had a lot of attention to details in places. When Easter eggs and fan service aren't all up in your face, that's probably when I enjoy them the most. In the space battle, which was awesome at the end, the space battle was fucking spectacular, I loved it. You could see that they included the ghost from the Rebels show flying around in the background, which was amazing. You could see Chopper just strolling around on the Yavin base, awesome. Stuff like that. Stuff that are really subtle, but only the mega fans will actually notice and appreciate. That's the kind of fan service I enjoy the most, because it's not all in your face. But, so, what if you enjoyed Rogue One, if you thought it was good or bad? My main concern here is that this is the start of something far more evil than we can possibly imagine. Since Disney owns this shit now, I promise that they will start making Star Wars spin-offs annually. It's the start of a Star Wars cinematic universe, and it's basically gonna go downhill from this point. Slowly but surely. By 2045, there are going to be hundreds of Star Wars spin-offs, each more of a cash grab than the next. And we will just be standing there, and when we are old men, just remembering a past long gone. But in the end, what is important is that you don't let nostalgia cloud your judgment, and see the movie for what it is and not a second coming of Jesus Christ. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you guys next time on Vortex Reviews.